Hello and welcome to the Musical Instrument Investigator. Today we're on the website of Aguttes Auctions based in France, and we're going to have a look at their latest auction, which is bowed stringed musical instruments. Looks like they've got 107 lots here, a mixture of things, and it's finishing on the 3rd of June. It's the 27th of May today, so a few days left to go. I'll put a link to the catalogue in the video description. Seems like the buyer's premium is 24% for this sale, so whatever the final hammer price is, you need to add 24% of that on top. Do bear in mind that this is a French auction, so if you are outside of France or outside of Europe, check the terms and conditions, import, export, CITES restrictions, all of that kind of interesting fun stuff and extra fees which you don't think about, so definitely worth checking that out. Before we get started into the auction, just like to say if you do enjoy these videos, please consider subscribing, like, comment, turn on notifications, etc., because it all does really help. So yeah, 107 lots. Let's just kind of blitz through it and see if there's anything interesting at all. Starting here, we have a fine French violin, Mircourt, early 20th century. Quite a nice looking back there. For some reason there doesn't seem to be any measurements on this auction. Not quite sure why that is. Maybe they're at the catalogue somewhere else on a main bit, but I can't actually find anything, unfortunately. So 1,000 to 2,000 euros on that. Obviously needs a new bridge and setup, so you need to factor that into the cost. Got a fine French violin, Mircourt, first half of the 19th century. 1,000 to 1,500 on that. German Marknenkirchen factory violin, 20th century. Fairly standard. 500 to 800 seems a little pricey. Then we've got a French violin, Mircourt, early 20th century. It's again fairly standard. 800 to 1,000. Needs its bridge and setup, etc. So it seems a little bit high. A French violin by the Lebert firm, Mircourt, late 19th century. I'm sure that might be popular because of the interesting back. 500 to 1,000 on that. They've got a German violin, late 18th to early 19th century. They want 1,500 to 2,000 is the estimate on this. So this has a massive soundpost crack on the back, not particularly nicely repaired, and a few other cracks here. So a lot of issues. I would say that 1,500 to 2,000 is a bit high really for something with a soundpost crack, unless it really is something interesting. It may well sell for that. Maybe if it was in a kind of like an affordable auction, it might creep up to that if a few people were interested in it, but it seems a little bit pricey to me. I don't think it's super interesting, but that is my opinion. Then we have a French violin by Ain, Mircourt, late 18th to early 19th century. Let's have a quick look at that one. See, fairly standard, but I think I'd probably prefer to buy that one rather than the previous one. French violin, 19th century. I mean, it's a French auction house, so once again we've got to expect quite a lot of French instruments. I actually quite like that, some of these older French violins with that kind of orange varnish. Yeah, quite like that. That's interesting enough. 500 to 1,500, that's a fairly wide estimate there. French violin by JTL Workshop, Sarasate professional model. This is a fairly standard thing. 600 to 800, needs some setup work. French violin by JTL there, 19th century, slightly higher model. Probably be quite popular for that back, I would think. That's a fairly nice back, but obviously needs a bridge, so needs a bit of work. I wonder if a lot of this stuff has come from the same kind of person's collection or a dealer or something, just because they're all in a similar state. Right, a fine French violin, Mircourt, early 20th century, 500 to 800. I mean, that seems more reasonable. Maybe not super exciting, but at least it looks kind of mostly ready to go. I'm sure you can ask for condition reports as well. A fine French violin by Charles Enel, Paris, 1937. 3 to 5 on that, so we've jumped up something. A nice looking back there. You can see Quite a nice quality varnish as well. Yeah, quite nice. Needs probably a little bit of TLC and cleaning. Looks a little bit dirty, but yeah, interesting enough. 3 to 5. I don't really know the going rate for that maker, but it probably is not unreasonable. French violin, 19th century there, 1000 to 2000. French violin miracle, early 20th century, 500 to 800. This almost looks like these are painted flames. Not sure if they are or not, but not overly exciting. A 19th century violin. This is a little bit curious in its F-hole positioning there. Interesting wood choice in the back. Yeah, has some charms, had some repairs and things going on, a little bit funky. 500 to 1000 on that. French violin by Lebert Humbert Frère, miracle, 1931. 800 to 1000 on that. Let's have a look. Yeah, quite nice actually. A little bit needs a bit of repair here and there, but yeah, quite nice varnish. Yeah, not bad actually. 800 to 1000. I think that's actually fair. We don't know how big it is in terms of size. It might be one of these giant French violins, but like I said, hard to say without the measurements. I'm sure they must be somewhere here. A fine French violin, Circle of F. Breton, circa 1800, 5 to 600. So it needs a bit of TLC for sure. Yeah, it's that kind of French violin of that period. It's a fair estimate, I think. French violin by JTL again. Quite a nice back actually on that. That will be popular, 1500 to 2000. Yeah, that's quite an impressive back. Obviously needs some bridge as well as most of the things on here. Looks like there might be a repaired crack there, but yeah, it seems a little bit high to me still, but might be popular. German violin, late 18th to early 19th century there, 1000 to 2000. Looks like the wrong button. Looks like the varnish has been messed around with a little bit there. I think we're losing our zoom functions. Quite nice varnish on the back. 1000 to 2000, maybe lower estimate. It's kind of interesting. French violin by Nicolas Didier, known as Nicolas Ain. Well, it's probably not Ain, it's probably something else, isn't it? But I'll work out that pronunciation at some point. Miracle circa 1800 to 1810. Now, I really do like these instruments a lot, but this one looks like it's in a bit of a state. Same, really nice kind of varnish, nice back on that. But the front is looking a little bit worse for wear. It's a nasty crack here. I mean, these are fairly common. I think it's a little bit high on the estimate. Violin by Jenny Bailly. French violin by Jenny Bailly, 2 to 4. Let's have a look. Yeah, fairly. Nothing super exciting, but there's some documentation there. I don't know, I feel like that's probably a reasonable estimate on that one. German violin, 20th century, 5 to 800. It's not particularly exciting, but looks kind of mostly together. Probably Austrian 18th century violin. Let's have a look. 3 to 4. Nice varnish there. Yeah, this one I quite like actually. Definitely needs a bit of work. Estimate bit. Still think this is a little bit high really. For an unnamed instrument, personally. Another French violin here, just fairly standard, 4 to 600. Another French violin, Circle of Francois Breton. It's just kind of different type of trade violin, I suppose, from that period, 600 to 1000. French violin Mircore, early 20th century, fairly standard. German violin, 19th century. Let's have a look at that. 800 to 1000. Looks like it's got some kind of certificate with it. Not particularly exciting. Guillaume certificate there, and Serge Boyer. Interesting. French violin, Emile Boulanger workshop, 1924-1928, 1000 to 1500. Interesting crackle happening there on the varnish. Yeah, slightly concerning about the varnish. Otherwise, estimate doesn't seem too bad. French 18th century violin, 1500 to 3000. This is more my thing, but looks like a few funny bits going on here already. I think for that alone I would miss that one. Fine French violin by Caressa and Francais, Paris, 1907. 8 to 10 now. These definitely are popular and they will sell, so I'm sure it will do pretty well. You can see it's nicely made, really beautiful varnish. Not really a fan of these French kind of violins that were given as like awards and things that have this kind of decorations on, either on the back or on the side. Not a massive fan personally, but yeah, a good violin. I'm sure it will probably sell. French violin by Serge Boyer, interesting, Miracle, 1970. That's curious. 1000 to 1500. Quite a well-known gentleman. Let's see here. Not super exciting as such, being completely honest, but actually probably a good opportunity to get quite a nice violin by a good maker, quite cheap, so interesting to see. French violin by Jules Grandjean there, 1845 to 50. Yeah, popular maker for sure. These can go quite high. I just don't find this one super exciting, to be honest. Fine French violin, 18th century. Let's have a look at this one. This one I'm preferring a little bit more to the last one that we looked at, last 18th century one. 2.5 to 3. Yeah, getting a bit more believable. French violin by Charles Vary, Toulouse, 1938. Looking a bit more interesting. It's that varnish that's a little bit too shiny for me personally, but 2 to 3 is probably not unreasonable. Okay, right, a fine composite Italian violin, the 18th century top, probably by Dalla Costa. Okay, 15,000 to 30,000 euros. Let's have a look at this. Be interesting to know then what they think the rest of it is by, or who the rest of it is by. That's a beautiful back, really like that. It looks like it's been opened and repaired a few times. Looks like some worm tracks going on here, but really nice back. Yeah, I quite like that. That's quite interesting. Curious looking scroll. Yeah, interesting. Not sure I'd pay that much money for it, but definitely one of the more interesting things. A fine 18th century French violin. Okay, 6 to 8. A bit higher. This one does look in a bit better condition. A few issues going on here. Quite delicate F-holes there. Well, the back is in surprisingly good condition actually. It's a nice, very nice piece of wood there. Okay, Charles Luc Hommel, Marseille. Okay, interesting. Interesting. Okay, yeah, 6 to 8. I mean, really is quite a nice, beautiful back there. So, could be believable. A fine French violin by Hippolyte Chrétien Sylvestre, Lyon, 1883. 12 to 15,000 on this. Pressing that wrong button again. Always seem to be doing that. Yeah, very nice back on that. Feels a little bit high estimate, but maybe not. We've got a wooden case from H.C. Sylvestre, 3 to 400. French violin, miracle, early 20th century, fairly standard. A fine French violin by Honoré de Hazy, miracle 1850. I think it's 8 to 10,000. That's a fair amount. Nice enough, but not super exciting. French 19th century violin by Nicolas Caussin, the head not original, 3 to 4. I mean, the Caussin stuff definitely sells pretty well. It's quite a nice violin, quite an interesting scroll actually. Yeah, curious enough. French violin, Circle of Amédée Dieudonné. Not too exciting. Right, an exceptional French violin by Jean-Baptiste Vuillaume, Paris 1871, 120 to 160,000 euros. So here we are at the one of the top French makers or French workshops, and one of the most popular makers at the moment. So there you go, that's a top tier instrument. French three-quarter viola by Prosper Cabassa. Kind of interesting. French viola by Jules Remer. 1,000 to 2,000 there. It's a shame we can't know how big they are either. French viola by Marius Richelme. These interesting shaped instruments that that workshop was making. A French viola by René Quinoil. Got a nice back on that, 4 to 6. Fine French viola made in collaboration by Jean-Frédéric Schmidt, Lyon, 1970, 2 to 4 on that. Right on to bows now. French nickel-mounted violin bow by Louis Morzon Frère, circa 1955, 800 to 1800. Maire Pajot School nickel-mounted snakewood violin bow, 750 to 1500. French silver-mounted violin bow by Gilles Duhaut, miracle 1985 there, 750 to 1500. French nickel-mounted violin bow by Pierre Malines, 1000 to 2000. French violin bow by Eugene Cugnot, 2.8 to 3 on that. Fine French violin bow by Louis Morzon Frère, 2 to 3. German school silver mounted violin bow, 3 to 800. It's kind of interesting. It's quite a delicate kind of entry into the head there. French nickel-mounted violin bow by Émile François Houchard, a taut model. Okay, 3 to 600 on that. A fine French silver-mounted violin bow in the style of Houchard, made for Roger and Max Millant, circa 1940. A rare tortoiseshell and silver-mounted violin bow by Charles Nicolas Bazard, circa 1890, 2.8 to 3.8. French silver-mounted violin bow by JTL. Silver button, not original. Some of these JTL bows, they can be pretty good. French nickel-mounted violin bow by Louis Bazard. It's French silver-mounted violin bow by Émile François Houchard, 3.5 to 4 on that. Shame that we can't see condition reports either. Right, a French silver-mounted violin bow, the stick by Eugene Sartre, the frog and button made in copy. 10 to 15,000 on that. I think the estimate would be slightly higher if it was complete. Fine French violin bow by Louis Morzon Frère. A French silver-mounted violin bow by Louis Thomasin, circa 1888. This bow is in excellent condition, 6 to 9. A superb French silver-mounted violin bow by Louis Bazard, circa 1925. This bow is in mint condition, has its original head plate, screw and lapping. Okay, 3 to 4 on that. A fine French silver-mounted violin bow by Francois Nicolas Vorin, circa 1880. Nice looking bow that actually, 7 to 9. A magnificent French silver-mounted exhibition violin bow by Victor Fatigue, stamped Exposition, Brussels, 1924. 7.5 to 10,500 there, so we're really getting up a bit higher. A superb French silver-mounted violin bow by Joseph Arthur Vigneron Père. This bow is in mint condition and has its original headplate, screw and lapping. So probably one for a collector there, 10 to 15,000. A rare French gold and tortoiseshell mounted violin bow by Victor Fatigue, circa 1925. Another one in really mint condition. That does actually look in really nice condition there, 12 to 18,000 on that. Really nice, elegant looking bow that. A very fine French silver mounted violin bow by Auguste Houchard, circa 1930. Another one here, it's got a Raffin certificate. I do wonder if this is some kind of collector stuff here, because it's kind of odd to have so many bows in such good condition. 12 to 15,000 euros there, the estimate. Right, a French violin bow by Eugene Sartre, circa 1920, mint condition with all the bits, and a Bernard Millant certificate there. 20 to 22,000 euro. That sounds about right. So it definitely feels like this must be someone's collection here. French silver mounted violin bow by Nicolas Malin, circa 1860. 15 to 20 on that. French nickel mounted violin bow by Louis Morizot. French silver mounted viola bow by J.F. Daber. Silver mounted cello bow made in copy of Eugene Sartre, 600 to 1600. A pretty weird estimate. Back to violins here. We've got a French violin, Mircore, late 19th to early 20th century. I think it's one of these Marquis de l'Air things, 2 to 300, looks like it. Fairly standard. French Mircore factory violin, mid 20th century. The double purfling, 3 to 500. French violin, Mircore, 20th century. Another fairly generic instrument there. Looks like we've got a few more here, so we're in that territory. German violin, looking also fairly standard. Actually not too bad looking, kind of back. It's kind of got some character, but fairly standard. French violin, late 19th century. Pretty standard stuff there. A German or Austrian violin, 19th century, 2 to 800. A really strange, that's in a bit of a nasty condition. Estimates are just a bit, the gap is just a bit large, slightly odd. Violin, 19th century, same 2 to 800 there. It's fairly standard. German factory violin, early 20th century, 2 to 300. A German violin, 19th century. Let's have a look at the back on that. Once again, that looks like it's suffering immensely there, 100 to 300, so be careful of that one. French violin by Joseph Mugel, Mircore, circa 1810 to 1830, 2 to 500 on that. Let's have a quick look at this. Interesting corner work here, that's quite weird, almost like wings. Interesting back, it looks like it's a bit of trouble, varnish gone a bit funny, but it kind of almost looks quite interesting. Quite like to see what this looks like in person, I think. Mircore factory violin, again, our worst nightmare returns. Return of the Mircore violins, 20th century violin here. A study violin, Mircore factory, fairly generic here. Another Mircore that's half size here, which reminds me that stay tuned for the Vichy auctions coming up soon, because I'll be doing those, and that will be a sea of French stuff. So student cello there, nothing too good there. Another student cello, so I feel like we might have reached the pinnacle of this auction already. Another bow there, French nickel mounted violin bow, stick made for Colin Mazar. French nickel mounted violin bow, Lebert workshop. German nickel mounted violin bow. German school silver mounted violin bow, 150 to 300 on that. French school of Bazar bow there. German bow, silver mounted. Another kind of French Bazar workshop bow. Let's carry on there. Right, okay, a stick in the style of James Tubbs. Okay, 150 to 300. Interesting. French nickel mounted violin bow made for Prosper Colas. German school violin bow. Right. It says beeswax, but I presume it means abiel wood stick. Nickel silver frog and knob. Okay, Czechoslovakia, 50 to 150 euros there. German school silver mounted cello bow. Okay, a case here. One of these BAM cases. These are quite good, these cases actually. 150 to 200. Chambord model case. Interesting. Bow case there, and that is it. That is the end of the auction, because there are 107 lots, but there were a few obviously extra lots in that were slotted in with like B numbers, so that's basically it really. So yeah, there we go. That has been the Aguttes catalogue. Not super exciting, to be honest. I'm not 100% surprised by that. I think they're a bit hit and miss, but interesting enough. Anyway, there's a few curious stuff, and if you do like some of the French makers, there's definitely a few opportunities here in this auction. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching, really appreciate it, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.